So today is January 28th, 2021. My name is Blair Williams. I'm here at the Cumberland County Historical Society with Russell Sutton. So good morning, Russ. How are you?
Good morning. Fine.
So the first thing I'd like to ask is, how did your family come to reside in Cumberland County?
I'm not really sure. My mother was born in Wall, Pennsylvania, out in the Turtle Creek Valley, and when they came here, they were in Perry County. My father, as far as I know, was always, he was a Carlisle guy, and so I suppose that's how we ended up in Cumberland County.
How did your parents meet?
I'm not sure. My dad spent most of his youth in those days. The gathering place was out at Cave Hill, at that ice skating and canoeing and swimming. Perhaps they met there, I'm not sure.
What did your father and mother do for a living?
My father was an insurance salesman, and my mother worked for the War College with the, she was the campus counselor out there with insurance.
And I'm assuming, did you grow up in Carlisle too?
I grew up in Carlisle, yes.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up out of North Pitt Street.
Okay. Yeah, so
for the first part of my life, and then out in Slusher Village in North Middleton Township.
So you attended Carlisle schools then, or?
Yeah, I graduated from Carlisle High School.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, what year did you graduate?
I graduated from Dickinson College with a Bachelor of Science in Biology. Graduated from Shippensburg University with a Master of Science degree. Attended some other universities.
What was Carlisle like when you were growing up?
I loved it. You know, if I had a choice, even today, of where I would like to live, it would be right here.
What were some of the activities or things that you would do growing up here in Carlisle?
What do I do here?
No, so what were some of the things that you would do growing up in Carlisle?
We played a lot of, sports in the vacant lot up the street. Softball, football, all kinds of, threw horseshoes and that kind of thing.
And this was all outside of school then too?
Yes, yeah.
All right. And did you go to the Franklin School or?
No, I went to Stevens.
Okay.
And to the 4th grade. In the 5th grade, they transferred me to the Penn Building. For the 6th grade, they transferred me back to Stevens. And then the old high school up on Graham Street, I guess it is. Graduated from the old.
What was what were the schools like back then?
Very well disciplined. Our principal was very fair, but you did not want to step out of line. And so it's pretty well organized and disciplined. And I got a good education there.
Do you remember the name of the principal, or?
Yeah, Harold Hench. And Mr. Hench did not take any prisoners. Put it that way.
And I forgot to ask, what were your parents' names?
My father's name was Clyde. Nickname, he went by Jake. And my mother was Dorothy.
And then did you have any siblings, or were you an only child?
I have a brother, Clyde. His nickname is Cork.
All right. Did your parents ever talk about, sort of their families growing up, or did you see any of, your grandparents or?
Yeah, my father's parents lived down in Harrisburg. My mother's parents were divorced, but her mother lived next door to us in Carlisle.
So did she kind of help raise you and your brother, or?
No, not really.
No.
She was there for us, but no, my parents, I had good parents.
I was just wondering, so you mentioned that your mother worked at the War College. Was that after you and your brother were in school, or was that?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And then how did do you know how your father and brother got their nicknames, or?
No.
No.
Well, my brother got it because one of my aunts said he's a corker, and full of himself.
Yeah.
So he ended up with the name Cork.
Okay. And then, so you grew up in Carlisle and then North Middleton, but you were still attending Carlisle schools at that point? Because there's no Cumberland Valley School, or?
No, Carlisle High School.
Yeah.
Up at the old Lamberton building.
Mm-hmm. So, aside from Mr. Hench, were there any individuals or people or things that stood out to you about that time?
That what?
That stood out to you?
Yes, I had several good teachers. My math teacher, Martha Adams. So I had Algebra 1, Algebra 2, plane geometry, solid geometry, and trigonometry, all with her. And my biology teacher, Chester Lickle, who later became my supervising teacher when I was going for doing my internship for teaching biology at Dickinson. I mean, I was in his classroom, back in his classroom, but I was doing the teaching.
Yeah.
But there are others, but my favorite teacher of all time was Miss Hoy, my first grade teacher. She was my favorite of all time.
And why was that?
Just because She was Miss Hoy. She was just great.
Okay. You mentioned that you would play football and softball and horseshoes in some of the vacant lots. Did you do anything with the school? Were you on a...
Yeah, I was on the track team.
Okay.
And that was about it.
What was your discipline or event?
I was college preparatory.
On the track team, were you a sprinter or long distance?
Well, I tried high jumping and running, but I wasn't outstanding in any of them.
I have here in the notes that Paul gave me that you were kind of small in high school.
Oh yeah, I was like the second smallest kid in the class because my parents started me at age 5.
Mm. Which was...
Had they waited a year, you know, because I ended up being 6'1½". And
so you were like a year...
I think when I was in the Army.
Okay.
I think. Or
So
at least at college.
So you were younger than all your classmates then?
Some were even a month or two younger than I was. Yeah.
But your parents had more discretion about when to start you then?
Mentally, I was ready to go.
Okay.
Consequently, as you hit around the 10th grade, the growth spurt for the others, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and mentally, not mentally, but mature-wise, you kind of have a tendency to really have to strive to compete.
Mm.
Physically, socially, dating the girls and so forth. And I had a rigorous curriculum with Latin and all the heavy math and everything. Had I had that extra year of maturity, I think it would have helped. But I have no regrets.
So following high school, you went to just down the street basically to Dickinson College.
Yes.
So why Dickinson?
Well, financially, I was able to stay at home, even though I spent a lot of time at the fraternity house, but I couldn't afford to go anywhere else.
Mm.
I'd never be able to afford that today, but my first year at Dickinson in 1953, the tuition was $500 for the year. So that's why. And Dickinson had a great reputation. They ranked nationally, academically. So.
And then you mentioned that you were in a fraternity.
Yeah.
Which fraternity?
Alpha Chi Rho, called the Crow House.
Now, did you?
That was located where the admissions building is now.
Okay.
On the corner of College and High.
Yes.
The big white one there.
Yeah. It's a very odd building. Is that a new building, or was that the same building that you had your fraternity in?
That building we had purchased, that was the old, I think Mr. Bossler had that building. No, that's been there a long time.
Okay. So it looked like that even when you were there.
Yeah.
Did you live there, or were you just?
No, I lived at home,
Okay.
but hung out there.
Well, what was that like, being in that fraternity?
Well, I'm glad I had a great relationship there. I received mentoring, from the older guys. Plus, we had several Korean War vets who were there as social members, going for their education. And so those guys had the maturity, they had the goals of where they wanted to go. And so that kind of experience helped with the mentoring. But I really enjoyed my fraternity and have kept, back with to this day.
Well, I have here that one of your fraternity brothers was George Hoffer.
Yeah.
Was there, maybe
No,
him or?
He was not a fraternity brother.
Okay.
He and I graduated high school together. We were classmates, and then went to Dickinson together. And
but he wasn't a fraternity brother then?
No, he was not a fraternity brother.
Okay.
Just a close friend.
Well, I'm wondering, were there any other individuals, or maybe you can speak about George too, that stood out to you from your time at Dickinson?
Yeah. Bill Crawford was best man at my wedding.
And he was a fraternity brother?
Yeah, he was a fraternity brother and still very, very close friends.
Okay. So you mentioned that your goal was to become a biology teacher when you were at Dickinson, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I did my student teaching in biology with my former biology teacher, Mr. Lickle.
So what made you not choose to go down that path then? Or did you go down that path?
Because I got a diploma from Dickinson and greetings from Uncle Sam, I got drafted right away.
Okay.
I went in the Army.
So is that with the 2nd Armored Division there?
2nd Armored, Hell on Wheels, and went to Fort Dix for orientation down in New Jersey. So came assignment for basic training. Now my real good friend, Dick Smith, who graduated high school with me, we went into the Army together. He had a degree in biology from Lebanon Valley. So the sergeant came down the line and said, Smith, because of what you do, you're assigned to a biology laboratory in Washington, D.C. Probably wrote an elevator word. Sutton, 2nd Armored Division, Hell on Wheels, Fort Hood, Texas. I said, well, what's with this? He said, you're going to Germany, boy. So off we go to Texas for my basic training.
Sure.
Then for my advanced basic, because I had a degree, personnel asked me if I wanted to become an officer. And I didn't feel that I wanted to, that's really a lifetime commitment. So he said, well, how about a 9-13-10? I said, what's that? He said, operating room specialist. You'll work in surgery, handing the instruments and so forth to the doctor. I hesitated a little bit, and I could see he was a little perturbed. So he said, well, how about a 111.1? I said, what's that? Combat infantry. I said, give me that 913 thing. So I ended up at Fort Sam Houston in Texas at Brooke Army Hospital, working as an operating room specialist.
And how long did you stay there?
Well, you were there for 90 days, and that was quite an experience. I worked in every kind of surgery, I think, except belly and obstetrics. That would be ear, nose, throat, eye, brain, bone, and so forth. So there was one very interesting day. When you're in scrubs, there's no rank shown. So we're in the operating room, a whole bunch of people. Circulator came in and said, I need the name and rank of everybody in here. So it was anesthesiologist, major so-and-so, colonel, lieutenant colonel so-and-so, captain so-and-so, and it got to me and I said, Private E1, Sutton. They all stopped and they looked up, looked at each other, probably figuring, who is this guy? I was the lowest thing on the earth as a private E1.
Yeah.
So that was kind of funny, but so I worked with, well, I forget the doctor's name, but he was Dwight Eisenhower's personal physician, ear, nose, throat guy. But I had some good, funny experiences in that operating room.
Any particular stories that you can mention, or?
Yeah, we were doing tonsillectomies. We were going to do 5 of them. That's kind of a simple operation, but it can be dangerous because of choking on blood. So there was the old colonel who was in charge. He was a rough guy, but it was a good side where he would take time to explain the instruments to you. But we had a major, African-American major, his physician, his first operation. So the colonel was really on this major's case. So after the first one, he and I are out scrubbing. And I said, you know, I worked a lot of these. I thought you did an excellent job, Major. And don't take it too hard. He's a good guy. He's a little tough. The one that I really remember with this colonel is, we were doing a rhinoplasty, where you go up into a person's nose and trim the cartilage. Working on this sergeant. There is a Hispanic E6, 6-striper, who was scrub tech. He's in the surgically clean environment. I'm the circulator. I'm between the septic and the clean room. So this guy keeps dropping stuff, and the colonel yelled, Sutton, scrub. So I went out and scrubbed, and I came back in. He said, Sergeant, I'm handing you the cartilage from this man's nose. If you drop it, you're dropping 6 stripes. I said, oh, Sarge, you hang on to it. Now I'm in the middle of the operation. there are three sizes of nasal retractors: small, medium, and large. So he said, nasal retractor. So I thought, well, I'm in the middle. I hand slapped that and threw it over there, and he said, nasal retractor, your odds are 50-50, son. So I thought, I'm going big, and I went with the big one, and he said, good choice, but those are the kinds of fun things that you do.
So you said you were in Fort Hood for 90 days?
No, it was in Fort Hood for the basic training.
Okay.
It was 8 weeks. And then to advanced basic, I went to Fort Sam Houston.
Okay, for that was for 90 days.
In Texas, for the advanced basic. And then shipped overseas to Germany. And I was in a MASH outfit. Mobile Army Surgical Hospital is what MASH stands for. And so I was in Germany for a year and a half. And as an OR tech, you set up the tents, whatever. Now, I didn't have any actual operations over there. We were just prepared if something happened that we would support the infantry. There was one horrible train wreck where the German trains really go fast. Hit a bus with 40 people on it. Took it about 500 meters down the track. There was one survivor, a little 7-year-old boy. So we got called out to clean that up. And it was horrible, you know, with a lot of body parts scattered all over the place. But, you know, the blood war, that never bothered me. I didn't sleep too well for a couple of days after that. But as far as in the operating room with amputations and all that, did whatever you had to do. So I was not a combat medic. I was a MASH outfit medic who didn't, thank goodness, have to go into combat.
And your time in Germany, was this 57, 58, or?
It was 59 and 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to get my dates right in terms of when you graduated. I was trying to get my dates right from when you graduated from Dickinson and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I had a teaching certificate.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I got home, well, I sold some cemetery lots for a while, but I'm not a salesperson. My dad was good at it, but I wasn't. So then I got a job in the middle of the year at York Suburban High School teaching biology and earth and space science. Now Mr. Charles Lehman was superintendent. He was my assistant principal at Carlisle High School. So I took a fellow's place who was teaching biology. His name was Michael Mezak, who quit to sell educational books. I took his place, and not too long after that, communists were going to push us out of Berlin. Because I had a critical skill, I got recalled to go to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, prepare to go to Berlin. But because I was teaching biology biology and earth and space science following the Sputnik launch by Russia. Because of that critical skill, I could stay home. It was pre-ministerial, teaching math, have 4 dependents, you're teaching science. Michael Mezak was an Army vet. I expect he got recalled because he didn't have a critical skill. So it was kind of like exchange places in life with him.
Yeah.
So I taught biology for about 3.5 years until 1964, I guess it was. I had a chance to lecture with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. So I left my biology job and went with them for a couple years with the Spacemobile program, where you go around the country and work with elementary and secondary schools where you demonstrate rocketry and satellites and all different base 2 and 5 base math, and then also conducted space science workshops, primarily for teachers who felt that their science background was insufficient to conduct little things for the kids. So I did that for 2 years. Met some of the astronauts, drank beer with them. My favorite astronaut was Russell Schweikert Jr., Rusty Schweikert. And Alan, one story here, Alan Shepard we were in a classroom, just regular sized classroom, and he's speaking. He had gone into space, and we were hoping that he would get another chance, which he did. My friend had the little brand new point and shoot 35mm camera. When Shepard was done and walked toward him, he got 4 pictures of him, and Shepard winked, poked him in the stomach and winked. I went home and said to my wife, I want one of those cameras, because with the big thing, you'd have never gotten those pictures.
Yeah.
And so he was able to hit him 4 times coming out of there. So,
Wow.
but I was able to work with some of the top scientists in the world, you know. And so I went to the NASA headquarters. Fort Lee, Virginia. A couple others there in the Washington, D.C. area. This was when Nimbus, the 2 type of satellite was going over, flying over. I was also at the Ames Research Center for a little bit in Palo Alto, California. Fort Lewis, the Goddard Space Flight Center down near Washington. And so first assignment was to conduct lectures and demonstrations in Minnesota and Iowa. So I was going on the road there a good bit. Then I got transferred back home to do Virginia and North Carolina. And so we'd be able to get home a little more often. But I had a choice when I had started working on my master's degree when I was teaching. I had a choice. Do I finish my master's degree or do I take this opportunity with NASA? Never regretted making that decision because I figured I'd get my master's degree after this is all over. And so that's what I did.
Did you know that, I mean, back here in Carlisle, they were making the crystals that were going in the spaceships, or?
I suppose so. We were the crystal capital of the world.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I didn't know, I mean, how confidential that was, or if that was something that you were familiar with, or?
Yeah, well, I was in
back then.
I was in the educational division.
Yeah.
And we would go to different schools and work. We had liquid oxygen, teaching rocketry, re-entry, some of the models of the different satellites and so forth, and we get the kids involved. Then, of course, in the summertime, we did the workshops and would conduct and teach these, especially elementary education teachers, who felt inadequate, with simple experiences in order to show them to be able to split oxygen and hydrogen out and use a quarry and paper towel rolls and build their own rocket, go up the top of the building and package a raw egg to simulate re-entry, throw that off of the building and see if your egg survived, kind of thing, and launch those rockets. And the teachers would get credit for that. And I would tell everybody, they would come in all dressed. And I said, tomorrow, this would go for a week, this seminar. It was a space science workshop in which you're teaching the application of space science. So tomorrow I want you to come in your old clothes, because we're going to cut flashlight batteries apart, and you'll have the carbon all over you. I want you to put your notebooks down, your pads and all that, because we're going to roll up our sleeves and do this. And I said, don't worry about a grade. Everybody's going to get an A, provided that at the end of this, when you go back to school to recap and do the demonstrations that we've done here, show what you did. When you receive that, you'll get the grade. So I said, don't worry about grades. Get that off your mind. We're going to do some work. And so worked very well.
You mentioned that at some point during this, or it was probably before, that you met your wife. I'm wondering, how did that happen? How did you meet her?
A buddy of mine he would give the girls a ride up to the Palace confectionery, wherever, because he had a station wagon. He said, why don't you ride along? And one of the people he picked up, I went up to their apartment and met her. We didn't really like each other too much. And I said, what are you doing hauling these girls around? Well, it ended up, when I was doing my student teaching at Dickinson, she was a senior in high school. So, started a date. When I graduated from Dickinson, of course, she was graduated from school, high school. We talked about getting married. So now, of course, I'm in Texas for basic training. Came home, we got married. I go back to Fort Sam now. Now she was 18 years old. Got on a train, met me in San Antonio, and then when we were finished with advanced basic, came home, boom, I'm off to Germany. Was able then, after a while, to bring her over. But when you're a private E3 at that time, Spec 4, I don't know. When you start out, I thought we got $78 a month. And then that increased when I got Spec 4. We lived on the economy. We would call our friends, do we play Monopoly at your house or our house? Because we didn't have any money. But we had a good time. She got pregnant intentionally. In those days, however, you had to fly back to the States before you're more than 5 months pregnant. Those are the rules. So my son is born at the War College. That's where her doctor was, because I was in the Army. He was born in September. I got home in October of 1960. Yeah. So that's how we met.
And then she'd pretty much follow you on all your NASA trips, or did she stay in Carlisle?
No, she stayed home. She and my son at the time was like on a map, a tracking device. Here's Dad now with this pin and so forth.
Okay.
But a promise I made to myself and to her, after 2 years of that, I'm going to come home. Because even though I would have a partner with me doing these things, sometimes they would be somewhere else and you were alone. You'd look around in a restaurant, there's a guy over here and a guy over here, they're salesmen. It's a very lonely life. And I wanted to make sure that I was there for my kids. So I left after 2 years. It was a great experience. I would lecture to high school kids. I guess the largest audience that I had was about 3,000 students, you know. And so that went very well.
What was your wife's name?
My wife's name was Judy.
Okay.
And she passed away in December of '09. Yeah, but yeah, we had a good life.
Yeah.
2 kids, my son Brett, and my daughter Jody. And we got married in Grace Church, Grace United Methodist Church, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the 28th of December, 1958. Paul and Lois Hoke got married at 4 o'clock, used our flowers. We didn't know too much then.
Yeah.
And later on we found that out, and Lois and Paul and Judy and I went all over the place. I had a timeshare, and we traveled all over the place together. So later on, they gave us some flowers to pay us back. But that's how I got to really know Paul.
Okay. You mentioned that you gave up getting your master's degree. Was that at Shippensburg?
Yes.
To take the NASA job. Did you go back to Shippensburg to
Yes,
complete that master's degree afterwards, or?
Yes, afterward I went. While I was teaching school at York Suburban, I would, 2 nights a week, I would drive to Shippensburg. Now you're preparing for Tuesday's 3-hour class. And no sooner you get that done, you've got Thursdays. So you're driving like 50 miles from, I lived in Yorktown at the time. And you say, well, I've got 2 kids now. Do I spend time with the kids and take a chance with the studies? Or do I really work on this, trying to ace the exams and neglect the kids? So you tried to do a balancing act. But that was hard. That really, not that academically it was hard, but in order to establish your time. But then I had some other, I studied at the University of Rhode Island on a science grant toward my permanent certification. Yeah.
So did you go back to York Suburban after NASA, or?
No.
No, okay.
No, I went for 1 year with the Department of Health.
For the state of Pennsylvania?
Yes, Pennsylvania Department of Health, where I would conduct little seminars with smoking and the health of youth, to try to have a person go out of questionnaire to prevent smoking. So I did that for a year and then had a chance to go with the Pennsylvania Department of Education in teacher certification. So I was a supervisor of teacher certification to supervise or to certify the teachers in Pennsylvania. And to interpret policy. And I co-authored a writing with Dr. Wally Maurer of my department for a thing, for something like, in those days, we didn't have a certificate for computer science. But in your district, you want to hire this you have people you want to teach, so, okay, what are we gonna do? So they developed, kind of a quasi-certificate that we would issue because you, the superintendent, are going to say, I have a math teacher over here that I would like to teach computer science. So we could say, okay, we're going to give him this other little certificate and to do that. So there are all kinds of things, in-flight aviation and so forth. So we wrote this book. We called it Certification Policies and Guidelines to give some flexibility to the schools. So I would interpret those, write policy. I served as the executive secretary to the Certification Appeal Committee, where people would appeal for their certificate if we had a bad actor or actors who were convicted or did something wrong. We took that certificate away. So, and that was my job. Now I retired from there. I guess it was 91, something like that. So I had retired from there.
So I did my undergraduate coursework at Elizabethtown College, which produces, or one of its bigger programs was the ED program, which I was not a member of, but I always heard sort of tangentially that the PA certification process was one of the more rigorous in the country.
Absolutely.
And so PA students from PA colleges tended to be in demand out west, especially in the South, because they were being prepared for this certification process here in the state. And so it was kind of this badge of honor.
If you had a teaching certificate from Pennsylvania, chances are it's going to be accepted anywhere in the U.S. unless it's where Texas said, you have to have a course in Texas history, know more about the Alamo. Other than that, the reciprocity, we wrote Pennsylvania, we wrote the reciprocities to establish that you could cross the lines, so forth, yeah. But it was rigorous.
And you were partially responsible for that.
I did not. That was the legislature.
Okay.
Now, the legislature establishes, that's the law and so forth, but the Pennsylvania Department of Education kind of sets within that parameter. They kind of set the requirements in cooperation with the legislature. So I had nothing to do with that. My job was to interpret it.
Okay.
And actually authorize the issuance of a certificate.
I'm assuming that your office was in Harrisburg?
Yes.
But did you still remain in Carlisle? Like, you lived in Carlisle?
Yes.
So you were just commuting? Okay. Because I see here that your kids attended Carlisle High School as well.
Yes. In the new building.
Mm-hmm. The one that's out there
right
now. Were you pretty involved, sort of, with your kids' schooling, or were you involved with your kids' schooling in terms of their after-school activities, or?
Absolutely. I was co-commissioner of baseball for the little kids when my son was there. My wife was with the Cub Scouts. I was a scoutmaster for, I don't know how many years I was a scoutmaster. And my kids were both in the Carlisle High School band, so I was involved with the band boosters.
Now,
Taught youth fellowship at the church.
What year were they in the high school band?
Pardon?
What year were they in the high school band, your kids?
Well, my son graduated in 78, I
Okay.
think, and my daughter in 81. They were,
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've interviewed, or I was there for the interview, but I can't remember the head of the band's name.
Clyde Barr,
Clyde Barr, yes.
great guy.
Yeah. And that was kind of the heyday of the Carlisle band too, because they just won the world championships in like '74 or something. And
But let's see what else I was. Well, that was primarily it, but with the kids. And one thing to think about, you can be doing things for your kids and not with them. Good example. When I was a scoutmaster, I had like 15 or 16 boys. My son was one of them. So I'm pretty much involved with, shepherding all these kids, and I would give up a week's vacation to go to Hidden Valley and all that. Was very active, loved it. I'm very upset at what they're doing to the Boy Scouts. But it was a great organization, and well, I guess I was a scoutmaster for 4 or 5 years, and really enjoyed the kids.
no, but that's an interesting point that you made, because as you said, you're a scoutmaster for 16 kids. Your son is one of those 16 kids, so you're spending time with him, but you're not solely spending time with him.
I am doing things for him,
Yeah,
and not with him.
yeah,
And that's one thing that, as a parent, you will find yourself doing, and that's all well and good, but you need to rethink your thing. Now, so happens that I'm very close with my children. My daughter's in Georgia and my son's in Florida. But a very close, good relationship with them. And so.
Well, I mean, speaking of sort of familiar relations, I see here that you like to, or I don't know if you liked, but that you fished with your dad a lot.
He was a very good fisherman, and hunted. When my dad had a vision problem, we stopped hunting, and I lost interest in it. But fishing is the thing. Paul Hook and I go fishing together, and I go every chance that I get.
Now, were you a fly fisher with your dad, or was that?
No, we would do bait fishing. I can fly fish. I have fly fish. I can do whatever I want with that rod. But lately, I've just been fishing for bass, sometimes with the fly rod, other times just with a spinning rod.
Now I see here that I should ask you about pier fishing on the Outer Banks and Mulligans.
Paul and Lois Hope were with my wife and me at the Outer Banks Beach Club in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina. So Paul and I decided we're going to go out on this. We had some gear, we bought some bait, went out on this pier, did nothing. Threw the bait in the ocean and went to Mulligan's to drink beer. The next year, we decided we'll just buy the bait and go throw it in and go back to Mulligan's. So that's, we never.
Not bother with the fishing.
Pardon?
Said, don't even bother with the fishing.
No, didn't bother with the fishing.
Now I see here though that you only drink Yingling.
I prefer Yingling lager, yeah.
Because I guess Paul was telling me a story that you once left Messino's because they were out of Yingling.
Yeah. Well, they didn't have it on draft. They didn't even have it in bottles, and they're only a half a block away from the beer distributor.
Yeah.
So we're not going there anymore. And if they get it back, I'll go back, kind of thing. I don't have anything against Messino's. The food's very good.
Yeah.
But,
all right. And I see another thing that you enjoy doing is playing cards.
yeah, we played cards. I like to play pinochle, poker, other different games, but basically I like to play poker.
Now, when did you start playing poker?
As a teenager.
So that was one of those things that you would do growing up?
Yeah.
And at the fraternity house too, or?
No, not so much at the fraternity house. Different guys' houses.
Sure.
No, I played a lot of pinochle at the fraternity house.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about in the Army?
A lot of pinochle in the Army. I had a black buddy of mine from New Jersey in the medical outfit. He was my partner, and he was really good at it. I learned a lot from him. But he was a male nurse in civilian life.
Mm. I'm just thinking back to other stories I've heard from veterans, and I know cigarettes were big stakes back then.
Pardon?
Cigarettes. People played a lot or gambled a lot with cigarettes. Was that your case too, or?
Not so much. I smoked at the time, and started smoking at age 19, quit at age 30, and if I were still smoking, I wouldn't be here. I'm convinced of that. But
yeah.
In the Army, you smoked.
So, were you gambling in the Army, or were you just playing for fun then with the cards?
Oh, small games, small,
yeah.
Small pots. And,
just to make it interesting.
Yeah, just to make it.
Okay. Another thing I have here is, I guess you had an uncle, Bill, is it Bream?
Yeah.
Who would race at the fairgrounds.
Yeah, I drove while I was in college, I guess. I got a job driving a starting gate for the harness races. And Dale Fetro of Fetro Motors was the developer of that. Prior to that, it was just what they call school the horses, trying to keep them even. But with this gate now, it made it more fair.
Yeah.
So, through my Uncle Bill Brem, who was a horseman, I got this job, and what you do is I would travel all over the Brandywine Raceway, Carlisle, Bedford, and so forth. You'd go to a track, look it over, drive around, because some of the rails, the white board rails, you get the lay of the track. Now the idea is to keep that arm, it's kind of precision driving, no more than a foot away. You don't want a horse to get his nose between the end of the gate and the rail. Now, they're hydraulic arms. The starter is up on the back with a microphone. I'm driving, we're coming down to the wire to start them. He's lined up, and I yell, wire. And then I take off and go around the track, and there'll be an open space I pull off, and the horses go around, so. They hooked me up with a guy by the name of Doc Hamilton from Mount Holly Springs. He's going to be the starter. And I think we went to Bedford. He didn't have much for college guys. But anyway, it rained a way out. Now the starting gate didn't have a roof on it, so we got ponchos and we're dumping the water. We got out there, and now this is after he and I traveled a little bit together. When I yell wire, he pulls, hydraulically pulls the gates in. I hear him back there cursing and swearing. They wouldn't close. So what I did, took him right pretty much to the rail. He physically pulled that one in. I brought her back out to pull the other one in. And we went around the turn. There was a police there with a couple slats out, pulled up and parked up on the hill, and I just whistled and put my hat back. I looked around, his eyes were big as saucers. But now, he said, hell of a piece of driving, son. We were bonded after that.
Yeah.
So, Paul. But at Brandywine Raceway, which is down near the eastern, in the Philadelphia area, the one race, I don't know how many millions of dollars worth of them. I had the greatest harness horses in the world, all a bunch of from Hanover Farms and everything.
Yeah.
Took them away. Everything, thank goodness, worked out well. I had I had a call, Brandywine. Fellow wanted to school his horse. Here was a little horse from New Zealand. Now in New Zealand, they run on grass clockwise. So he wanted to school us. The horse was so little, he drew the eight hole. He could get under there. We got permission to wire a sulky wheel there. Took him away, and he won that race. But I was out there like 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning. The gamblers sitting up there time. On the gate with the ticket takers were a bunch of barbers from the local area. I pulled through there in the starting gate. I said, come on, you've got a tip. Surely you've got a tip for us. I said, really, Phil, I don't know. I'm just a driver. Oh, yeah. But in the motel that night, I'm looking at the program. This one race being driven by a black guy by the name of Washington. I had seen him drive at Carlisle. The horse was named Judy's Bomb. My wife's name was Judy. Pulled through the gate. You got something? I said, Judy's Bomb to win in the 4th. Took off. Didn't Judy's Bomb win the race? I said, fellas, it was just a guess. But yeah, so.
Now, was Bill connected with your mother's side of the family or your father's side?
Mother's side.
Okay. Was she a Brem then, or a Breen?
No. It was married to my mother's sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long did you do this, the driving?
I guess just one summer.
Okay.
One season. Yeah.
Now, did you go to a lot of harness racing though because of your uncle, or?
Pardon?
Did you go to a lot of races because of your uncle?
Well, I went to them, I enjoyed watching them, especially out here at Carlisle. He would be driving some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have a couple more things. I see you're connected with the county honor guard.
Yeah.
What is that experience like?
Well, I brought a brochure along that you may have that explains what we do. Basically, I've been a charter member since 1998, so this August will be 23 years I've been on there. Our primary purpose is to attend funerals and present the colors, to do a rifle salute, taps. We also will take vets to the VA hospital. We'll go to schools and help them show how to hold the flag, or maybe present the colors for their band and so forth, concerts. And it's whatever time you have to give. So I've been in just about every cemetery. We're basically Cumberland County. But we will go out of the county. For example, if the resident perhaps was the veteran was a resident of Cumberland County, we've done this many. We have two squads, first squad and second squad. First squad's first to the 15th of the month. My second squad is the 16th to the end of the month. So we have quite a few members, but a lot of them are not able to go. So we've recruited to try and get some younger people. Our median age is probably 74, 73. But we do not pallbear anymore. We used to, but we don't have the physical capabilities anymore to do that. But it's a tremendous honor. And in these days, troubled times, when I take a knee to present those colors, in my humble opinion, that's the only knee that counts. And I am greatly troubled for the respect that my colleagues and I, Gardner veterans, have, that you can't stand for the national anthem. Shame on you, because of those veterans who are coming back, Walter Reed and all shot up, and then you have people, and that's just my humble opinion, but that's the way it is, because I have so much respect for that flag and my fellow veterans. And actually, by not standing, it's kind of a slap in the face of the veterans who have served and are currently serving. I don't probably keep my political views to myself, but when it comes to the flag, I'm a real believer in it, and the people who receive that flag are so appreciative. And so I just wish I knew how many I presented over the last 22 years. But the camaraderie we have, our armory is at the VFW over here, down here. And so under normal conditions, without COVID and everything, after a funeral, we'll go in and drink some beer together and have a sandwich and different stories that these folks have. We have every branch of the service. I don't think we have a Coast Guard. We have buglers. We have some women. We have a female bugler. We have a female rifleman, and so forth. But I'll share that with you because I'm very proud.
Yeah.
Serve on that.
I was just at a funeral with an honor guard. It was it's special.
Pardon?
I said I was just at a funeral that had an honor guard, and it is special. It was over in York County.
That would be the York County Honor Guard. I've seen them in action. They do an excellent job.
Yeah. So it was. I think there were only 2 people just because of the times, but I was waiting. And then the last thing I have here is the Exchange Club. All
right, the Exchange Club is a community service organization with 4 programs. Community scholarships, for educational things for kids. The major project is the prevention of child abuse. So we raise funds, and we work right now with Cumberland Perry Children and Youth Services, and with the SPY program and so forth. Put on a Christmas party for the kids. Had to do an adaptive one this year, but we have Santa Claus. for some of these little kids, that's the only gift they're going to get for Christmas. So it's very dear to my heart. I'm the chairman of that committee and also of the ACE Award, which is accepting the challenge of excellence given to a high school graduate who has overcome physical, mental, social challenges. And of course we have scholarships for the 3 schools are Big Spring, Boiling Springs, and Carlisle.
Okay.
And so I've been a member of that since around 1991. And
So you've kept busy since you retired.
Pardon?
You've kept busy since you retired.
Oh yeah, yeah. So and yeah, I've been. I was the club president. Then 2 different times I was the district president for Pennsylvania, and so I was actually district, which is the state of Pennsylvania, a couple times. So.
Now, what is that involved, being the district president?
Well, you visit all the different clubs. You help with recruiting. You want to go over there and sling hamburgers, or, you know. But it's a leadership role where you're responsible. You try to encourage everybody to have a child abuse prevention program. You assist them in various ways. So then to attend the national convention wherever it is, and but it's the fact that it's, as far as I know, as a major project, the prevention of child abuse, which is, people don't realize it, but there are about 9,600 cases unreported, reported in the United States in a day. How many are unreported? I don't know. 5 or 6 children die today, 5 or 6 more from child neglect or abuse. So we do whatever we can to help out with that. There are other clubs, community service clubs for various different programs, but I think we're the only one with prevention of child abuse, and that's why, primarily why I am an exchange agent.
That's all I had on my list, but is there anything that you want to talk about, or that I should ask and forgot to, or?
Well, in addition to other things, I like to shoot darts.
Okay.
I was for about 16 years, president of the South Mountain Dart League, and so forth. And, trying to think what else. I'm trying to think. I guess that's about it, Brian. I suppose. I guess that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Russ, for coming in today and speaking with me. It's been a real pleasure.
Okay.
All right.
You're more than welcome. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.